Hockey game, podcast, hockey game. Hockey game podcast. That's what they were doing tonight. We're watching a little bit of this Preds game. It is the end of the second period. There's no score. We're going to go for a little bit until this second intermission is over. Then we're going to watch the third period, and then we'll come back and probably not talk more hockey. We might not talk more hockey. I don't know. We'll do what we do. We're Almost in Agreement at gmail.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and YouTube. Go to the website, almostinagreement.com. We're there. Check out all the cool stuff we got going on there. Thanks for the email this week for making me not feel crazy. Big shout out for that one. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, favorite podcast writer, all those things. Hit us up, talk to us, tell us what's going on. We're going to start working on elections. We got an election here in August. It's actually August 1st, the 1st of August, so it's a lot sooner than, I don't know, for some reason it just didn't feel like it was as close as it is. So we got elections coming up, we got races, and we're going to talk about it. So we're going to do that. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
Yeah, I didn't expect to have to deal with another hockey game tonight because it didn't look like the Preds were doing very good in that series, so I figured they were going to get kicked out by this point. So, but they're in Game 6, trying to force a Game 7. If they can force a Game 7, then we'll have to deal with more hockey games next week, hopefully, because if they can force a Game 7 and win, and then we go on and move on and blah, 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 blah. So, anyway, that's the Preds score, Preds highlights. We are not officially sanctioned to talk about it other than, I don't know what I don't really quite understand, like I don't know, we don't have like paid sponsorship with the show or anything like that, so.
I don't think it matters as far as like talking about the game.
Well, it's always like any written writing in broadcast accounts of the game, which I would be like talking about it in past tense. This is what happened. Like you give your account of, like if you were a witness to a crime, they're asking for your account of what happened.
Right.
That's how I understood that to mean. And so that if I were to give my account of watching the Preds game, that would be me violating that thing that that little. Oh. This is a presentation of the NHL.
So it was like more like unauthorized broadcast of.
Right. Like if we were doing a live stream and we were doing a radio.
I think you can do to a very slim extent as long as you're continually commentating on it. So the thing I've seen with some like the YouTube channels is they can watch some like protected content because they are
right. You can't do it in its full completion, where as far as you can't watch and hear it as part of a third party's broadcast.
Yeah.
And so as long as you're talking over it, that makes it a new audio file, meaning it's not blatantly stealing it, but that's regular content though. That's not sports stuff either. So I don't know. Whatever. Sue me, I guess. NHL, bring it.
Yeah, I wouldn't think there's anything against like talking about it. Like, hey, I was just watching this and I just saw this happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like, it'd be an interesting question for a NHL lawyer or pro sport or a sports broadcasting legal team. Like, what exactly does that mean? Not in the sense of I want to figure out how to work around it. I'm just curious, you know.
Because that would mean you literally couldn't have some kind of like podcast that was, on some kind of delay. I mean, you could. You would just have to have a.
Well,
you're not sitting there doing like the play-by-play of like, oh, blah blah blah. Just
right, but I mean, I don't know. Like that's the question. Does like SportsCenter, for example, when they do review highlights the morning after? I'm guessing that there is a contract in play that they pay the NHL. They have some sort of agreement with the NHL.
Yeah, but I assume it's like a broad thing. It's like, hey, we're going to give you this much per year that gives us access to NHL footage.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying, but there's agreement in play. It's like you give us permission to use.
But that's showing like actual like official broadcast. It's not like fucking cell phone footage of the game.
I would think like the newspaper. If the newspaper is going to do a story on yesterday's game, that I would think that like News Sentinel has some obligation to.
No,
I would think they have to have something in place
to report upon the game.
Yeah,
like literally, you're not allowed to talk about the game.
I don't know. I'm curious. That's what I don't understand.
That wouldn't make sense to me at all.
Anyway, I don't know.
I can't report on. I can't talk about what happened.
You're a for-profit enterprise,
before.
so you're using their. I mean, essentially, the argument is that's their intellectual property. The NHL is the business that owns. Well, yeah, they own the league, to which they have these franchise teams who play the games, and so as a result of their creation, which is the league, these games exist, and so the spectation of the games, whether it's directly in person, whether it's through broadcast on TV or radio, or some digital version of a broadcast, up to and including the replays and accounts day after, is their intellectual property. No different than, functionally no different than if I were to just read the Lord of the Rings series on a podcast and say that this is an independent item.
I mean, I would think the happenings of the game would not be considered intellectual property. And I'm not I'm not a legal scholar by any means, but
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if we we went to that previous game, if the next day we decided to make a podcast, we took notes during the game, there was.
Right, no. I mean, yes, in the sense that this is not this is a theoretical for-profit enterprise, but it's not a practical for-profit enterprise. So the idea of we're not making money off of it, but if that was the theme of the podcast, that we went to games and then talked about them the morning after, I mean, we're basically piggybacking off of their intellectual property. Our creation doesn't exist without the use of their creation, and they have a right to protect that. I would think that that's the legal standing.
Not sure.
So, I don't know, but that's a random deep dive into the questionable legalities of talking about sports on a recorded platform. So,
welcome to the show.
Yeah, this is what we do. A bunch of we don't know what the fuck we're doing. Nothing super exciting this week. Some cool, the continued destruction of all city council meetings by pro-Palestinian protesters continues again this week in the city council meeting.
Oh, was it disrupted again?
No, I mean it's everybody, every single agenda item. People are signing up for it, and it's we need to extend those sidewalks because killing kids in Palestine is bad, and we should do something about it. Taking up the whole because you get 5 minutes to speak, and they're intentionally taking up the entire 5 minutes, just blabbing about it, barely adjacent to whatever the topic is, because they're required to stay on topic.
Right.
And then at the very end, free Palestine, and then the whole crowd goes free Palestine, and then they walk off. And so they're literally, I mean, they're the intent, whether they're blatantly saying it or not, the intent is to just annoy the piss out of the city councilors. That's what they're doing. That's what they're trying to do, and that is what they are doing. They're trying to annoy the city into getting their way.
What is it? Kincannon leads it, right?
Yes.
So it would be her that would have to gavel them out of order, hey, you're not staying on topic.
She did a few. There was one apparently one lady who had signed up for 3 different topics, had all her little 5-minute speeches in her phone, and was talking for a second and then looked down at her phone and apparently was on the actually asked Kincannon, which topic is this one? And Kincannon gavelled her out and said, "You're done." And she's like, "No, I'm just sorry. I just forgot which topic we were on." It's it's your job to know what topic we're talking about before you take it.
You wanted to come up and talk
speak
on a
this topic, right? And so she was like, "Yep, you're done."
If you're not following along, then we're done.
Yeah. So and then got some kids, some UT students got arrested. And whatever, I'm not sure. I go back and forth with this one.
That was how they picked the law. I think it was on the campus of the law school or whatever.
Yeah, it was out in front of the law school building, which is right there on Cumberland. So it's a visible spot.
All right.
But it's the same thing that the Columbia kids are asking for and stuff like that. They don't want the University of Tennessee to be taking any money from any of these companies or the Jewish government directly, or the Israeli government directly. They don't want they wanted the university to stop participating with Israel in the study abroad programs, whether it's to or from. They don't want They're like, don't send Israeli students here. Don't send our students to Israel. And then they want the university to refuse any money from a list of people or companies or governments that are associated with the Israeli government.
Right.
So that's the whole divestment thing, which I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a fair demand.
Yeah, I saw that some schools are like, hey, I'm not saying we're going to do this right now, but we'll talk about this.
Brown, I think it was Brown, agreed to holding a meeting on this on the topic of divestment like next week or 2 weeks away. And the protesters are like, cool. And they all went home. Yeah. And so, they didn't get their demands, but they at least got their demands considered.
Right.
And apparently the UT one, which not necessarily dissimilar, there were 7 students and 2 non-students that were arrested or that were detained and cited. The 2 non-students were arrested and detained by KPD.
So it was like just the 7, trespass. They have been warned to leave and just failure to leave.
Right, which they all were warned to leave, and it's like you have to be gone by X.
Yeah, so the school said hey, we'd been trying to talk to them all afternoon or whatever.
And they were talking to him, and they were in pretty regular discussion with him. And we came out and said, you guys got 45 minutes to clear out, and if you're still here in 45 minutes, you're going to get arrested.
Right.
And 100 people left, and 9 stayed. And so I don't know. I find it. I guess part about it I find interesting in that I'm assuming I take for granted the fact that if you're going to demand the divestment part of it, that there is evidence that the University of Tennessee has endowments or some sort of funding that comes from this list of places that they don't, that's involved with Israeli politics or governance.
I can't remember what school it was. I saw that the school that was calling for it, they're like, it's less than 1% of anything that we get is coming from this.
Then fine, then quit taking it.
Right.
Which that brings up a whole other subset of things. It's how is, that goes back to, we've talked about this 1,000 times. College is so damn expensive. The UT just they just announced likely tuition rates next year.
Saw that.
2% for in-state, 4% for out-of-state students or something like that. And it's I don't remember what an average semester is at UT anymore. But we talk all the time about how it's getting more and more expensive across the board. Everybody says it's you have multi-billion-dollar endowments that these universities are getting. The University of Tennessee specifically is a state school and gets significant funding from the state of Tennessee and still needs to charge $20,000 or whatever it is a semester to keep the lights on. I don't again, this goes back to that math, the budget mathematics that I just can't wrap my fucking head around. How is it so expensive? You're not paying rent. You're not paying a mortgage. You might be paying loans for some of the building projects, but you're not paying for the land.
They pay property tax?
Fuck no, they don't pay property tax. It's the state of Tennessee. Who do they pay it to? They don't pay it to Knoxville or Knox County. They do not pay taxes. Full stop. The employees, the professors, and the janitors, and the cafeteria workers and all that, they pay income tax, and they pay sales tax when they go out and buy stuff. The retail portion of the bookstore and the the fan shops and stuff like that for stadium process and stuff like that collect sales tax, and so they collect and pay sales tax, but they don't pay property tax.
Well, I guess I just don't see why they wouldn't pay property tax as well. I understand they're a state institution and they would be paying it back to the state, but
no, because property tax is that's where the local governments make their money. That's been my whole gripe the whole time, with the whole stupid footbridge thing. That the city of Knoxville and the city of Knox taxpayers are going to help pay for, because it's going to help bring in the South Side to be more involved in the city of Knoxville. Right. All they're going to do is lose property to the state of Tennessee. State of Tennessee doesn't pay property tax to a local municipality. They don't pay tax. It's a nonprofit organization anyway. But even if it was a for-profit, it's the state of Tennessee. They can't be a for-profit. They have to be a nonprofit. For all intents and purposes, it is. It'd be treated the same as if we move the capital to Knoxville, and that piece of land that Neyland Stadium sits on, we put the state capitol on. they don't pay taxes, property taxes. Which is another reason why I don't understand why we're so beholden.
Do they declare income at all? The university?
I mean, yeah, they have to. Yeah, I mean, they have to show receipts that says we collected this much money this year. They might have a franchise excise. They might have a state business tax, which for them would be, if they do, would be substantial. But I doubt it. Like, it doesn't. I mean, logically, it doesn't make sense. Even if they do, it's nonsensical, because it's literally the state of Tennessee, who is paying into them, is taking money back from them so that they could pay it back to them. It's very cyclical, functionally. I mean,
yeah, but you still got to move numbers from one ledger to the other.
Not really. You just don't take it, and then you don't have to give as much. I mean, theoretically, you say, okay, well, you would have paid a $15,000 business tax as a business in the state of Tennessee, since you're a state operated business. We'll just pass on that, and just, we said we were going to give you $1,015,000 next year. We're only going to give you $1 million. It's break even. What's the difference? Right. So anyway, I don't understand. Like, again, the main point is I don't understand the mathematics of why is it so expensive. Like, it's a $2.2 billion budget, give or take, that they're about to announce, or they just announced, for next fiscal year. So from August to the end of July, 24-25, it costs $2.2 billion for that university to exist. Now, for some context, for those who can't wrap their head around what $2.2 billion is, which is me, so I'm talking to myself on this, because the Knox County, who operates Knox County Schools, and Knox County Schools takes the lion's share of Knox County's budget, which should be right at $1 billion. And according to the U.S. Census Bureau's estimated between census data things that they do, we believe that the Knox County has broken the $500,000 resident mark officially sometime this year. It already has at some point this year. So between Jan 1 and today, we now have 500,000 residents in Knox County with $1 billion budget, and we have 60,000 students.
How many does UT have?
UT system-wide has like 80,000 students. That's system-wide. So that's all
three campuses?
Four. They added that one 2 years ago.
What was the last one they added?
But most of them are here. Like 35,000 UT Knoxville.
What was the newest one?
Austin. Shit. Why you gotta ask me questions I don't know the answer to?
Sorry, I thought you were just looking at it. Doesn't matter. I was just curious. I was like, wait, 4?
How many students? Fastest growing university in Tennessee. I don't know. But yeah, so I pulled up the 24 budget, and I'm trying. There's a lot of shit going on here. It's 97 pages. But in revenues, there's too many things. Unrestricted E&G revenues. I don't know what E&G means. UT Knoxville was $1.2 billion in revenue. UT Knoxville, the Health Science Center, which I think is UT Medical, which is attached. Chattanooga, UT Martin, and Tennessee Southern. That's number 4. Knoxville, Chattanooga, Martin, Southern.
UT Martin, Southern. Interesting.
UT Martin, and then UT Southern.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I thought there was a UT Memphis, but I guess Memphis is...
No, it's also in UT Martin.
I know there's Martin, but Southern is the new one that they added. So, anyway, Knox County does other things other than just schools, is my point I'm getting to. So, anyway, I find it fascinating that this, to go back to the beginning of this, is that it takes $2.2 billion to educate like 70,000 undergrads statewide. It takes $700 million to educate 60,000 K through 12.
Yeah, but you're talking about different. Different equipment, facilities that you've got.
Yeah, you also have different. I mean, like the UT or Knox County Schools doesn't get a lot of revenue outside of their tax dollars, outside of what they're budgeted from the county.
Right.
The University of Tennessee is making hundreds of millions. I don't know how much
that's just what the state provides to the university.
Oh, that's their total budget.
It's their budget. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see anywhere. I didn't go through the depths of that that 100 pages of whatever in the 20 minutes of watching the Predators lose. Me.
Sorry, I thought that's what you're trying to point out in what they've got incoming. Right.
Well, no. Right. Well, right. What I'm pointing out is that Knox County Schools gets its money exclusively from Knox County. They don't have side. I mean, yes, they have PTO groups that put money in, and the foundations for different schools that put money in, and grants that the federal government puts out that they apply for and get, which apparently some...
Do PTAs put money in?
Indirectly. There's rules.
Oh, okay.
There's usually a PTA, the PTO, and there's usually a foundation, and the PTO and the foundation are kind of hand in hand as far as the fundraising part for... Because usually it's like we just went to the Bearden Middle School 6th grade orientation thing, and it's always like, oh, you should sign up for PTO, ways you can help raise money either directly or indirectly.
Is it a PTO or PTA?
It's PTO and a foundation.
Huh.
And so like the foundation built, like apparently they put a field house in out, like apparently the PTO for Bearden Middle School built and resodded and repaved the track and soccer field and baseball field that is on the property. So now Bearden Middle School has its own facilities for sports. They don't have to go to county park the field or rent field time from a private park.
Huh. Yeah, because I don't think they used to have any kind of baseball fields.
Right. The foundation paid for that. Knox County Schools did not. Now, that is something that they're trying to fix a little bit inside the school system, because in elementary schools, until this year, all of those foundations were the ones that paid for playgrounds.
Right.
And so you had the lower income schools that didn't have as strong or big or, frankly, rich, families that could pitch into the foundation. Therefore, they had shitty, falling apart playgrounds.
Yeah, because a lot of that money comes from their fall festival. And
right, they do a big
kind of stuff like that
every year. Right, we do. I don't know. Last year, I don't know. I've never been. I don't want to go. I haven't gone to one. But like some of it's kind of silly, fun stuff. Some of it's kind of obnoxious, and it's not really like. I don't disagree with it philosophically, but it's kind of obnoxious. Like, basically, like when you go to the theme park and you buy your fast pass to skip the line.
Yeah,
they have a fast pass for pickup and drop off, and you can pay into the foundation for a certain number of dollars, and you can go to the special line to pick up or drop off your kids. So
what?
you don't have to wait in the normal line.
I mean to go off topic, but in the realm of I had thought about recently in the realm of kind of like school security. I've always kind of thought it odd that for I'm pretty sure it's the majority of most, at least elementary schools, you have this placard that you're given or whatever, which could be easily duplicated. It just has a student's name on it, and you've got somebody with a walkie-talkie that's like, okay, this next car is picking
Johnny's
up for so-and-so.
Johnny,
there's no verification that you may have the odd chance if it was somebody the student didn't recognize, like, well, I'm not getting in the car with them. I don't know who that is. But I always thought it was kind of odd, as secure as we have as people coming in.
I mean, I don't know. To give a little credit to, to get away with that as a predator of sorts in the example. Like, I get what you're saying.
I mean, not necessarily a predator, but even just a family member that may or may not supposed to have custody. You know, if it being a.
But I mean, even that though, I think unless you do it in like the first couple of weeks, or you get lucky and it's a sub that's trying to run that portion for the day, those teachers get pretty used to who's coming and going.
Think so?
I think so.
It's a lot of people to be picking up, because sometimes, I mean, you send like you send a family member to go pick up your kid. Like you just give them that placard.
That's not protocol by school policy.
And you're not supposed to do that.
No, you can have like if you are permitted, like you have to submit a list of people that is allowed to, and it's only allowed to be like one or two.
Right.
And that has to be submitted.
But I mean, that's your list for you being able to go inside the school.
No,
and
that's your list for taking them out of school for any reason at any time.
Huh. Well, I'm assuming it would be the same list, but
right. But now, pickup wise, I guess they're not necessarily don't have the checkout. They don't have the procedure to stop that per se. But yeah, if I had a placard for the wrong kid, I might get away with it because a bunch of the teachers and stuff recognize me because I'm there all the time.
All right.
But like. I think because it's always the same people that are like I get a high barber family every morning from the lady that runs one of the entry points where we walk, and we're one of like 10 families that walk every day.
Right.
But she's doing the traffic for the special people that paid for their pass to skip the line. Yeah. And so like she's out there directing traffic and doing that whole thing. And she's like, "Hey, barber family." It's like, "Hey, Miss Holt." She's actually the principal of the school. But but like I get acknowledged by name every morning, and so, I mean, I don't know. Like the middle school flat told me that they don't care. Like they like at dismissal, that's just bye. They just open the doors and
right.
The kids go where they go and hope they show up tomorrow.
That's one thing I was kind of thinking in this whole kind of like push to having more secure schools, and I'm like, wait, it's like this whole kind of like drop off and letting kids leave.
I mean, to me, the bigger security issue comes into play
is during school hours, right?
Well, not even that, but I'm just saying the bigger security in the pickup drop off part comes into play is that you have hundreds of people on campus. Like in the middle school, like we're out in the parking lot. There's the whole parking lot's full of parents picking up, just waiting. And it's like, how hard would it be for?
They still do it from the front.
No.
There
might be a special people pick up over there, but the buses go up front, and the parking lot in the back is where we all go to pick up for walkers and car riders.
Yeah.
There's a little more chaos than that, but yeah, that's the general principle. But like, functionally, I like there's no signs, there's no placards. I don't need anything to get into the lot at that time. Not to put ideas in people's head, but if that was a thing that you wanted to do, you could show up at 3:00 to one of the, or at least, you could show up before dismissal, but not so obnoxiously early that it's not obvious that you'd be there for pickup time. I mean, I like every once in a while, because I'm coming from work, I'll be there a little earlier than I mean to, and I'll get there at like 3:00, and there'll be a handful of people already out there waiting to pick up their kids. But there's nobody at the gate letting us in or out of the parking lot. We just go park.
Right.
And so to get out of my car and walk inside, if I had malintent behind me, I could pretty much do that.
When they have like a line of cars, how do they, I guess, like organize like who's coming up next? Or is it just like a mass of kids out there and they're like, oh, I see. So there's my parents' car out front. All right, here you go.
Yeah, the kids just go. Like they don't care. The kids just go.
Well, I understand how they keep the line moving, because it makes sense in what I've experienced in like the elementary side of it.
Right, they have I need this person, this person, this person, this person. And they go line up, and they jump in the car, and then while they're lining up, they see the next set, and they go. Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But no, we just all go and pick up. I mean, like it gets bad. Like it's bad at Beard Middle, because like there are kids that are crossing. I guess it's Francis Road right there,
right,
and going to that gas station on the corner of Middlebrook and whatever. And there's parents that are parked in that gas station.
Yeah.
There's a little neighborhood across the street, and there's parents parked in that neighborhood across the street. There are people that will just stop on Francis and pick their kids up off the sidewalk, like on the street. And it's like, okay, that's a little much.
Yeah.
Like that was fun. Like today when I was picking up, there were some girls that were chirping at some boys across the street, and just talking girl shit or whatever they do. And then like right in the middle of it, the mom pulled up right in front of them, and they all just stopped in the car. It's like, what? That was weird. But anyway, back to the original point is, I like you said, like if it's only like 1%, like what's the big deal? Why get rid of it? Why do you need it in the first place? Why are we like I get actually that's why I pulled this out because I was going to show you.
Well, I mean, I think that was more trying to make to the point of, I guess, like again, some of the protesters are like, "You're taking all this money." It's like
it's not that much money. Who cares? But then it's the same argument. It's like, okay, you're right. It's not that much money. Who cares?
Right.
Fuck. Goddamn dog. We just had to cut a section out of you yapping.
Shut the fuck up.
He hasn't made as many appearances recently as he used to. He used to be a regular. Anyway, that argument goes both ways. So, it's not that much money. Who cares? Okay, it's not that much money. Who cares? Get rid of it. But it's like this stuff, like I was trying to show you, like, so like I told you about this, like when we went and did alumni band, it's like a $150 registration. Well, it's actually $145 registration, and you are automatically donate $5 to the alumni whatever fund, and so you become a donating alumni member. And I got my my tax form in the mail that I got to write off my $5 donation to the University of Tennessee or whatever in taxes, stuff like that. But like I get these silly little letters. This one was return addresses for my envelopes. That it's basically like, here as a dedicated alumni, we're giving you this, and they give you the things, but then in the envelope of stuff, it's like, here's a return envelope with a spot for you to put your check to donate more money. Right. And they just got like, so now I start getting these all the time. And it's like, there's a whole department at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville specifically, if not system-wide, who is out there fundraising and trying to pull donations from alumni. And it's like, okay, so we've got the Israeli government or companies that have close ties with Israel that are donating dollars per year. We've got the Haslam family that's donating millions of dollars a year to the university. We've got all these different named buildings because they're all named after somebody that gave them a lot of money for the most part, or made them a lot of money if you get into the sports side of things. So we've got all these parts and pieces and people that are revenue generating entities. They're making money for the school, and tuition's super high, and the state is paying into it. I don't like. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes sense actually. If you go down to campus at all ever, it makes sense because there's always a new $100 million building getting built. You could always see the money getting spent, but it's like, how much of that is getting spent on the point, or are they just spending it because they need new buildings? I
mean, part of it is upgrading the, quote unquote infrastructure of it to then be able to still bring in more new prospective students. It's like, hey, we have this state-of-the-art facility for this program, and this program, or whatever.
I acknowledge that. I'm not disagreeing with that as part of it, but for fuck's sake, there's got to be there is not a point in time when the University of Tennessee is not under significant construction.
Right.
I mean, they're just about to do another $1 billion add-on to Nayland. And that doesn't make anybody smarter.
No.
But it's going to happen.
But I mean, their argument is the football program brings in this set amount of money to the university, so that justifies it.
I understand that's their argument, but it doesn't justify it because you can't explain to me why you need it. So what? Like, what do we need? Like, why do we need all this money coming from all these places to do what is ostensibly a fairly simple task of educating somebody?
It's just trying to swing around a big stick. They're like, hey, we bring this much into the program.
I mean, I think you and I are on the same page here. You're just being a little bit nicer about it than I am. Like, right. I think it's a crock of shit. I think you could get the education for far less expense, both out of pocket for the student, as well as out of pocket for the state, as well as out of pocket for somebody who graduated from there a decade ago. It doesn't need to cost this much. So why does it? And why do we continue down this fucking rabbit hole of university shit? Because Columbia would be a whole different animal. But apparently Robert Kraft's a huge donor to Columbia. He owns the Patriots and stuff like that. And apparently he's a big Zionist, and so he's not having it. His money is not going to go to a school that's going to allow these anti-Semitic protests on campus. But anyway, that's an aside. Anyway, 7 kids and 2 non-students got arrested, or got cited for trespassing, basically.
Yeah.
Which, who cares?
I didn't see exactly what they got charged with.
I mean, I think it's just it's trespassing, but
that's what I assumed was just trespass.
I mean, the real question is the two non-students. I mean, just normal misdemeanor citations, whatever. The 7 students, the university will be handing out the punishment, not the city of Knoxville.
Right. So they'd already been referred to whatever board kind of does that.
Right. They got to review the code book hand policy guide to see what exactly they violated, so that they can see what the official punishment for violation of said thing is, or whatever.
According to the school handbook.
Right. Which, again, I mean, that's fine, and I think that's the point, and I think the 7 students that are going to get slapped with whatever the penalty is presumably knew what they were getting into.
You would hope so.
That's the point of civil disobedience. You're supposed to get arrested.
Well, I mean, that's the point of having some intelligence, is you have to know.
Right. You'd think so. I mean, but again, the question to me is, like, and this would be the fun one, is if a UT law professor goes and defends them on their case, because they were displacing them. That was who they're technically transgressing against, is the comings and goings of that building on campus. That would be appropriate, though.
It was after hours. I don't know if they could argue that they were.
It doesn't matter. They were trespassing on that piece of property. That's what the transgression was. I'm just saying it'd be funny,
right? But that department doesn't have ownership of that property.
No, I just think it'd be funny if somebody from that department, who was the directly transgressed upon section of the university,
right, happened to defend them.
That would be the appropriate thing to me. That would be appropriate. They would
have in-house counsel. In-house counsel.
Yeah.
That'd be a conflict of interest, because.
Yeah, they could be. It could be a concern that they might throw the case.
I mean, honestly, I'd say a lot of the people in the UT law department probably don't have. Well, I mean, they passed the bar, so I guess they have a practicing license.
This is also an internal,
or a license to practice law.
This is an internal inside the University of Tennessee issue, so it's not. You don't have to pass the bar. It's not a criminal court case. It's a.
Actually, no. I'm sorry. Yeah, it wouldn't matter if they pass the bar. It's whether or not they have a license to practice law in Tennessee.
But they wouldn't need it for this anyway. Is my point, is because this would be an internal. The 2 people, the 7 students.
You're talking about the internal,
right? The 2 people outside of I don't know if you go to court for that anyway. Pay the fine.
Well, no, the other 7 still have.
No, they don't have pending city charges. It's only the university is handing out the punishment as decreed. There is no. They were not cited with criminal trespassing by the city of Knoxville.
It's the school that was charging them with trespass, not the actual city or county.
Right. The city or county can't charge somebody with trespassing.
Why?
Because though they can't without the owner of the property asking them to.
I mean, they brought them into it. Was it UT police
to remove it? I don't know if it's UT police or not. That's another question I had that I don't know the answer to.
I mean, I would think it would still be a city statute of trespass.
It might be. You might be correct. But my understanding of it is the 7 students did not get a public citation.
Gotcha.
They got it's still public because it's a state school, but their citation is with the university directly, where the 2 non-students is a regular citation.
Gotcha.
That nature. So I don't know.
It could be some weird thing.
That one was crazy.
Oh, the UCLA?
Yeah, did you see any of the footage of that?
I didn't see any footage, no.
Yeah, so like a counter pro-Israeli protest came in and removed forcibly the anti-war protest that was going on.
I heard there was, like some fisticuffs that started going on.
Yeah, it got pretty violent, pretty nasty. But and it was that one or the Columbia one where they brought in the cool, like, I guess it was the Columbia one because it's that they're calling it Hims Hall. It was Hamilton. It's called Hamilton Hall, but they renamed it Hims Hall when they took it over. Hims is that girl. I don't know if you heard this story. Is I
think so.
Palestinian girl, whom was riding in a car with her family trying to get somewhere or something like that. Car got blown up, and the at least the story goes, is the IDF killed her parents and her sister that was in the back seat with her. She'd survived it. She'd called for help. Whatever services were there got in contact with the IDF, said, hey, we got this person, we want to go get them, can we please go get them? And there was a bunch of back and forth, and finally the IDF said, yeah, you can go get them. And then the IDF finds the girl, kills the ambulance driver and the medic on the ambulance on their way to go get this girl. It's a really gross story. Anyway, that's the girl's name. So but I guess NYPD got to deploy some cool like siege weapon on this to go in and take this.
I saw it was some weird like ladder thing that went up through one of the windows.
Yeah,
I think the story I read was like how they got in there was there was at least a few people that had like gone in there the night before and hidden inside that building
as protesters. Like they snuck in as protesters.
No, I guess they'd just gone in like the evening before. I don't know. I can't remember what kind of like building it was that got occupied.
I mean, it's a classroom building. Like it wasn't a
yeah, it was some kind of departmental building. But,
yeah.
But I guess they'd gone in the night before and like hidden. I guess whenever the security guards had kind of did their rounds before they locked the doors, but they had like hidden, and then after they locked the doors, came out and unlocked the doors, and then allowed other people in.
Oh, when they occupied the building,
right?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, this is the same building that in like '68 there was some anti-Vietnam War protests. That's
what I saw something about. They were kind of
over.
Juxtaposing the two.
And then another time in like the '80s, this building was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they were saying that Columbia had a history of right. Kind
apparently
of.
Columbia has
protest.
it on their website. Is they're proud of their free speech atmosphere that allows students to do whatever. And they mentioned the '64 one or '68 one specifically.
I think it's '68. Yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned the '68 one specifically and tell the story about that and how that was a great experience. Like that was a great important, landmark in the history of whatever and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, now it happens, and they're sending in some super cool SWAT units to go in there and bust these kids out.
Yeah.
I say super cool, very, very not. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of the over militarization of our police departments. I think it's gross.
I mean, I could see it's kind of a difficult thing to kind of going into an unknown situation, not knowing what you need to prepare yourself for. Like,
I mean, I get it's perfectly logical in a tactical sense. I understand that, but
at the same time, you show up in like riot gear, riot shields, that automatically just kind of like amps up the response to it.
Let's break some shit.
Oh shit! Yeah, they're showing up with this and this and this.
Right. You're gonna be a little bit more aggressively defensive than passively defensive when you have something that looks like it's here to hurt you.
Right.
But in the other one, I mean,
but at the same time, I mean that response is also kind of, in a way, meant to not necessarily intimidate, but also kind of discourage the act of, I guess, resistance of said. It's
sure.
Like, hey, I'm showing up I'm prepared for just about anything you're about to throw at me. Like, let's not do anything.
Oh, I get it. I mean, tactically,
it can end up amping up both sides.
Tactically, I understand it 100%.
All right.
Like, morally and rationally is where I get a little bit more dicey on it.
Right.
Like, I don't know that it makes total sense to me that we need, a functional battalion as part of our police department.
Right. And I saw a couple statements that kind of came out of Congress. I don't remember if it was Senate or the House that kind of basically said, we need to leave this to like the universities to kind of deal with this.
Well, right, and Columbia being specifically different because Columbia is a private school, not a public school, which I don't know what that changes necessarily, but it is a noteworthy exception. Not exception, a noteworthy difference to discuss. That as a private industry, for whatever it was, if that was my business, I would call the police and tell them, get these people out of my fucking building because it's my fucking building. They don't have the right to be there. Which is essentially what happened. And, if you're the police department and it's your job to protect private property on the request of the property owner, then that's how you got to go about doing it.
Yeah.
It gets like I said, it gets a little bit different when it gets into like state universities and stuff like that because that is public property, but it's still not. That's a weird nomenclature issue that I don't know. It goes back and forth. Like a public park, like Lakeshore Park, closes at they close at dusk. You're not allowed to be there after dark. Well, it's public property. I can be there whenever the fuck I want, right? We all own it. No, you don't. We collectively own it, and we collectively decided that these are the hours, so you must abide.
All right.
It's like I can get behind that. It makes sense to me. Even in my libertarian mindset, it's like, okay, I respect that premise. It's not anti-libertarian to think that either, I don't think. Because it'd be like, well, in a perfect libertarian, perfect whatever, it'd be like, well, that park would be private, and the private owner could say, well, I closed my park at 9, so nobody's allowed to be here. Wouldn't be any different. Because like the same, like the most ridiculous version of the argument, it's like, well, a public school is public property, so I can just go there whenever I want, right? I can just go in there and be on public property because I pay for it. It's like, no.
I own this.
Yeah. I own 1/500,000th of this.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to be here.
Tell the people that like try to talk to public servants like, I pay my taxes, I own you.
I mean,
it's like, no. Well, no.
I don't think anybody owns anybody. That would be slavery. That's a little.
Well, no, I mean, I actually like own you, but
I pay your salary is not a false statement, though. I don't think it's a particularly strong argument to make.
I think that could also be reversed upon them. It's like, oh, did you get a tax return this year? Well, yeah, I pay for you too.
No, I didn't. I did not get a tax return this year. Why that doesn't make any sense anyway? What do you mean? To get a tax return?
Sorry, I guess not really tax return. I guess.
I mean, did you get any sort of government funding for your lifestyle at all? Yeah, and I paid for you too.
Yeah.
Do you get food stamps or WIC or do you get 10 care for your kids? Then I own your kids. That would be the closest one if that person fell under that category. But this is Tennessee. Tennessee ain't paying for much if they don't fucking have to. But I did get my stimulus checks during the pandemic, so I guess they own me for that. That's the same. I mean, it's the same kind of. It's right. I don't know. It's a silly. I don't think it's a particularly compelling argument, but I do think it's a. You know, I mean, for police specifically, yeah, there's a little bit of it. It's like, look, your job, like, technically, functionally, your job exists because we as a public allow it to. And so whether we pay for you or not is like whether we pay for you in taxes or not, it's not really the argument. It's like you exist, like, you know, you have protect and serve on your bumper, right? Yeah. Well, you know, that doesn't excuse me from whatever crime it is. That doesn't make this argument okay that I, you know, you work for me. But technically, like theoretically, that's the idea.
Right. But I guess it's more when, in the course of a legitimate traffic stop.
Right. When you're trying to use that as your defense for why you weren't actually speeding. No, that's not true. Like, but it goes back to, like, we talked about this a long time ago. It's like, you know, there's this us and them thing that I think that most police departments have. And it's like, no, it's supposed to be an us and us. And I think that's one of the major societal failures we're seeing the consequence of over time. Is it's supposed to be a we. We together have designated this group to help us protect us from bad people that do exist. We acknowledge that bad people do exist, and we need help, and we need people specially trained for that. And we collectively decided we're going to pay for that to exist. It doesn't put you above or better or give you some special bracket of existence inside our community, but it does put some responsibility on you to act on our behalf. And I think that over time has changed. Maybe not over time. It might have always been that way. I don't know. But at least it feels to me like it's changed into they're this special classification of citizen. They are not just citizens that have a particular job with the public. They are a special citizen, and they should be treated as such. And we should fly flags in their honor all the fucking time and thank them for their service and, you know, back the blue or whatever the fucking catchphrase of the day is. And it's like, nah, I don't know. I don't know if it's not automatic. You're not automatically a good person because you put a uniform on. You're not automatically special because you chose a job, a profession. And that goes across the board for me, which gets me in trouble quite often.
I would argue that sentiment, it would be hard to determine like where that sentiment actually started. Was it just the police, you know, having this us versus them thing, or is it more of the public that is more has a greater population?
You would think that over
kind of taking on this us versus them type thing.
Okay, but
because they are the ones enforcing laws.
But they are a public entity at the behest of the public, and so if the public has a collective problem, then it should be addressed, and not just
right. I don't disagree with this, but I'm talking about just the general sentiment of us versus them sentiment.
I mean, that's fine. But if that us versus them started with the us of the public being them, the police, then them, the police, and us, the public, or maybe them, the elected officials who oversee said people, should be making adjustments to try to fix that, because there's got to be something in place that makes it an us versus them. And if it was us first, the public.
No, you can't blame lawmakers for the sentiment of the general populace versus law enforcement. How can you credit them for perpetuating the quote unquote us versus them mentality?
Because they're the ones that have the ability to oversee and change policy inside the police department, and to force change in policy. Because, okay, so if the us and them started with, if it started with the public being like, those fucking assholes, whatever.
I think it's just the general sentiment of, like, most people aren't happy to get pulled over for speeding or for running a red light or, et cetera.
Okay. I don't think the average person who gets pulled over for speeding is going to take an us versus them mentality with the police department. I think
many do.
I think people that have the us versus them mentality with the police department are the people that say they're looking for a way to arrest me. They're looking for something to do to get me in trouble. They're trying to find a problem because I'm trying to grind out my life, and they're trying to make it hard for me because they win if I go to jail. That's the us versus them mentality. Like somebody gets a fucking speeding ticket and they're like, I wasn't really speeding, whatever. They're not thinking about it in any sort of like functional long-term thing of their life, unless it's on top of the other things.
They downplay it as, you should be going out, finding murders and stuff, and you're pulling me over for speeding. So they see that as just they're being, singled out.
Right, but if your argument is you should, there are other criminals out there that you should be bothering instead of me, then it's not an us versus them, because those other criminals are part of us. You can't say that as part of your argument. Because it's not, because the us is the general population versus the police.
Well, no, to them in that situation, they don't feel they've done something that wrong. They're yes, they've been caught speeding. They kind of minimalize it, but they kind of view it more as there's worse things out there that you could be out there doing.
Sure,
and you're picking on
by
me
default,
for speeding.
That argument, then.
Well, no, in their mind, they just think that they're being victimized. When,
sure, but
in that time frame, other more major things could have gotten caught, and you're like, you're doing me for this when you could be out doing so much more.
Right, but that at best that's a me versus them argument. That's not an us, because the us would include those other people that you should be busting.
They consider themselves as the us, because they also know that many other people, like probably one of the most common citations out there probably is speeding.
It's a good question. I'd like to know the answer to that one. What is the most common citation by a KPD officer?
I mean, that'd be my general guess. Because I would say, more often than not, you're going to get a warrant.
I bet it's trespassing.
No.
Yeah.
Not that many people that are trespassed.
Well, whether they write the citation or not, that's a good point. I'd say the most common call is trespassing. Nah, I don't know. Domestics, I think there's a lot of other stuff that they deal with that maybe you and I don't have to see, but there's a lot of, I would say it's probably like weird domestics between neighbors. Not even domestic violence, just like shouting arguments, noise complaints.
Yeah, noise complaints.
Shit like that's probably more common than speeding. I don't know. My speeding tickets might be up there. It's the most common. I don't know. That's a good question. I should see if I can find the answer now. I got me.
You got an in with Mr. Noel.
You got me. I do. I've met him a couple times. He's trying to find me a slushing machine, so he can make some frozen daiquiris like they do down in New Orleans.
But I mean, to me, I think it'd be hard to kind of go back and find the genesis of the whole us versus them.
You're 100% right. I don't disagree with you at all on that point, but it does not mean that it isn't a problem, and it shouldn't be something that we're figuring out how to address now. And just because we can't go back to the beginning,
right? I'm just trying to pushback on it. What sounds like you're trying to say this is the police that are just kind of have taken over this us versus them, and it's just it's just how they look at the general populace.
If I was going to write the unresearched history on the us and them and the police society, yeah, I'm going to guess I would put if I were to place a bet on the conversation, I would say yeah, it's the cops that the thin blue line conversation, the protect my friends that I work with over the public that I work for lack of a better phrase. Yeah, I would guess that's more of where it started than it would be with, just some Tom, Dick, and Harry out here just getting pissed off about getting speeding tickets all the time.
All right.
That would be my guess on the truth of the reality of how it started.
All right.
Because corruption, it's like, what's the phrase? Corruption, what was it? Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's like they're given a seat of power by definition, by the job. Like, we ask them for that. That's the point of the police department.
Right.
We give you the power to help protect us from the bad people out there.
Right.
And with that power comes that corruption automatically,
Wait, say that again.
The power corrupts.
Right. I understand.
Absolute
I get the phrase, but us giving them the power what automatically bestows the...
If the adage is true, which I think it more or less is, yeah. I think it's in mass, yes. I think it's by individual.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is the phrase.
Okay.
It's all power corrupts, but absolute power will absolutely corrupt. It's just how it's the level of corruption goes. It's basically like a ratio. It's a 1-to-1 ratio of power and corruption. The more power, the more corrupt. The more power, the more corrupt.
Right.
The less power, the less corrupt. But you're corrupt as you can be with the power structure that you have in place.
Right.
And so whether it's and in fairness, whether it's kind of semi-innocent corruption in the sense of it's like, well, it's my buddy. He's a good dude. You had a bad day, and he punched that kid in the face for being an asshole, and the kid didn't really deserve it, and that was technically, a little bit of abuse of power or whatever, but he's a good dude. I'm not going to get him in trouble. It's like, no, you punched a fucking kid and you're a cop. I don't care if it's your friend. You're not allowed to, you don't defend him. You punched a kid.
Right.
But they do. And it's, and again, and they do, and it's a broad sense they do. It's not an individual. I've had much interaction with many levels of KPD over the last couple months with what I've been working on. And for the most part, they all seem like pretty straight up dudes and chicks. Sorry, they're not all dudes. They seem I don't get the feeling of, but there is something almost, especially in the like the higher the officer, the higher the ranking kind of system, there is like this little twinge that's always kind of at play. Like there's just something in there that it's like there's, and what I feel like it is, and I don't know this, and like I don't know if I could dare ask, but what I feel like it is that like I feel like it's always there's a couple guys that kept explaining to me why, but it was in a way like when I told you before, yeah, I understand why you think it that way, and then you explain it to me again, like I didn't understand it the last time, kind of thing. It's like, okay, I get it. Yes, I understand it. You don't need to explain it to me again. But it's also like I could feel like it felt to me the whole time when these little they're just little things in conversation that kind of kept popping up, is that there's this like looking over there kind of thing. I don't know how to describe it other than that. It's like he's talking to me, but he's looking around me. And I'm in, like, one of the conversations was in the KPD offices. So it's not that he's actually looking behind me at what's behind me. It's that he's in the conversation. He is trying to find what's going on around me, in the sense that he's like, I don't know, like it felt like he was looking for, is there some weird little thing that you're trying to sneak in here on me? Like, are you trying to get something past me? He's trying to look out for all these different possibilities, and it just felt...
You've never looked away when you're trying to think of a thought.
No, it's not a vision thing. It's not a vision thing. It's like he's looking me in the face. He's not looking around me. It's that his thought process is like, it felt like what he was asking and the way he was talking to me and the way I was taking my, like, responding to my answers and stuff like that, is that he was looking around me. If it was like... okay, so there's a policy that most police departments do. I believe KPD does it as well. It's called Beyond the Ticket. Look beyond the ticket, and it's when you pull somebody over for speeding, running a red light,
Right.
You don't just go up there and be like, here's your ticket, court date, go on.
Right.
It's you get your flashlight out, you look in the back seat, you look in the whatever, you look here, you look for signs of intoxication, you look for maybe like bruised knuckles if they've been in a fight recently kind of thing. You look for that. You don't just cite them for what you caught them doing. You look for something else that they might have been doing that you didn't see.
Right.
That's what it felt like when I'm talking to him about putting my special event on. It felt like he is looking beyond what I'm handing to him. I'm saying, here, sir, this is what I'm trying to do. This is the plan. This is what we want to do. And he's looking at that like, how could you use this as some way to get something past me? That's what it felt like.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'm paranoid. I might be crazy. We've discussed that.
I mean, to me, especially if I've got somebody that asks me questions and I'm trying to, respond to them, a lot of times I'm not going to necessarily look them in the eye all the time because I'm also going to be trying to think about what I'm trying to say
I apologize.
And as I'm trying to say.
The looking
something.
past me thing was not an eyeballs thing. It was a thought process. Is what it felt like he was looking past me. He wasn't physically looking past me.
Right.
It felt like he was looking for something that I was trying not to give him.
Oh.
Maybe that's a better way to put it. Like he was asking me questions, and when I'd answer the questions, it felt like it was like, well, what aren't you telling me? What aren't you telling me? What aren't you telling me? He didn't say those words, but that's what it felt like.
Oh, maybe he suspected the skepticism in the questions that you were asking, and were trying to over-explain things.
Yeah, it doesn't help that I can't help it. I don't know. I'm good with people.
I mean, sometimes it's just the words that you say and how you set up a question.
I think
you can kind of preface a question in okay, I don't think he's asking me and trying to get more information. He's asking me and he's already got an idea about how an answer should or should not be.
Right. What's the number one rule for a lawyer? Never ask a question you don't know the answer to.
Right.
So it was an interesting. Anyway, how did we get? I don't even know how we got there. Not a lot else going on locally. There's I think for Knox County voters on August, there's everything. All your House seats. If you're in Briggs' district, you're stuck with him. If you're in Massey's district, you got a primary in August, and then that general's in November. We got the presidential race in November, obviously. Burchett's got a primary challenge, I believe.
Who was it that was challenging him?
I don't remember. I pulled that. I
remember seeing the story about it, but I can't recall who it was.
Jane George is running against him as a Democrat. I'm trying to remember his primary challenger, if he has one. I might be
right, but I think he has a Republican challenger.
Yeah, there, I got it. Qualified candidate list for Knox County. Nope. It's just him and Jane George, so no primary there.
Okay, never mind.
Monica Irvine is running against Becky Massey in that primary, and then Dominica Bryan is the Democrat in Senate Seat 6. House District 14, Zachary versus Amanda Collins. 15 is Justin Hurst, Dasha Lundy, and Sam McKenzie. That's a primary with Lundy and McKenzie. 16, Max, this is your neighborhood, bruh. That's Michelle Carringer, who's your incumbent, running against Lauren Carver, and you also have an independent, Sean Eastham? Estham? I don't know how you say that. Eastham? Eastham? I think it's Eastham.
Yeah.
My District 18, woot woot. Elaine Davis versus Brian S. Goldberg. I got to figure out who this Brian character is. Speaking of Brian characters, where are you on District 14 there, Brian? Whatever the fuck your name is that I pick fights with on Facebook all the time. My good friend Brian that I always argue about.
I'm sure you mentioned about him.
It's been a while. Brian S. Goldberg. Dave Wright in District 19 versus Sebahan Cantanzo. Where is District 19? Justin Lafferty is against Carrie Hammond. And these are all Novembers, except for the couple of primaries that you've heard. Gloria Johnson is running unopposed unless she takes that Senate seat, and then there's nobody in seat 90. Farragut Board of Aldermen, which is actually relevant for once and forever, has a couple of races. State Executive Committee can suck it. I don't care about their party bullshit. County Commission, District 1, Charles Frazier, Damon Rawls. District 2, Debbie Phillips, Courtney Durrett, and Ethan Grantham. District 4, my neighborhood, Garrett Holt and Shane Jackson. The Dems think Shane Jackson can win. I got to talk to Shane Jackson and find out. Angela Russell, C. Arthur Moore in District 5. Terry Hill, incumbent, versus Daniel Green in 6. Adam Thompson, Charles Chandler in 8. 9 has Andy Fox, Matthew Park, and Stacy Smith. We got Phil Ballard and Drew Harper for property assessor. David Buch and Jackson Fenner. I need to talk to you, Jackson, because I can't vote for Buch. But I did vote for Buch in the primary because I pulled the Republican primary, and I couldn't vote for Herrera because he came up here. His kid knocked on my door talking about immigration. Board of Ed, District 2 has got Ann Templeton, Jennifer Owens, Pat Paulus. 3 is Angie Gothert and Patricia Fontenot Ridley. District 5, Lauren Morgan, Tyree Whitaker, and Travis Wright is running unopposed in District 8. So congratulations, District 8. You already know who's repping you in school board.
Yay!
So, yeah, that's a mighty list of people that are all going to be, well, not all of them. Handful of them, most of them will be on our August 1 ballot. But then the state and federal generals on the presidential. Which right now, I'm voting for, I don't know. I don't know. Not Trump, not Biden. I might do RFK Jr. I might do RFK Jr. because I would love to see a 25-35% out of him.
It's kind of funny how much pushback he's actually getting from both parties now.
Because they don't know who he's going to steal from. They're so confused.
Right.
Because, on paper...
I don't know if we should, welcome you or hate you.
On paper, he should steal from Biden all day. He should be a Biden spoiler on paper.
All right. But
historically.
Some things that, I guess, the Trump team have gotten worried over, I guess, some of his growing support or whatever. But I don't know. I can see him stealing from both, but
I mean, he dips into
the kind of non-Republican, non-Democratic plethora of people is very wide in their views.
Well, not even that. It's I always make.
Because I think the Trump campaign came out and was I think they were saying that RFK was he was more left than Biden.
Right. He's Green New Deal friendly, which he is. It's true. He was an environmental lawyer for fuck ever. So he's Green New Deal friendly. To me, I always make the questions how do I rank my issues? Right now, I think foreign policy is on the top of my issues list, and for all intents and purposes, Trump, Biden, and RFK Jr. are the same person as far as the Israel situation goes. I don't know how Trump stands on Ukraine. It wouldn't have happened. He said that about Israel too. It wouldn't if I was president.
Right.
If I were president, it wouldn't have happened if I were president. It's your fault for electing Biden. So, So I don't know. I don't know if I can vote for RFK because of the Israeli-Palestine situation. I can't imagine myself voting for somebody who's going to be, because he's anti-Ukraine war. But he wants Israel to get whatever they want. And it's not that I want or don't want Israel to have anything. I just don't want to pay for it. And so I don't know if I can vote for somebody who's pretty. I mean, and that's what sucks is that we finally have a functional theoretical third option for once. And on the top issue of me this election cycle, I'm thinking they're all the same. So I guess I go to my second issue, which I don't know what my second issue is on the president right now. Because I think foreign policy is I think for the president of the United States, I think foreign policy should be the top of their duties.
Think so?
I think so. I don't think
would not prefer them focus more domestically.
I personally believe their domestic agenda is they ought not have a domestic agenda. Their job shouldn't be focused on. I'm not saying they shouldn't take time and energy to deal with stuff, But I don't think as far as an agenda to get laws passed on domestic issues, no, I don't think that should be in their wheelhouse. That is Congress's job.
So what do you envision the role of the president as?
I mean, by the use of the words and why we've divided it into three branches, is they are to execute the laws passed by the legislature. They are not to create the law. I don't like executive orders. I don't think it's appropriate.
How do they? Yeah.
They execute it because they're like, so whatever the law is, and we've talked about this at length, so whatever the law is attached to some department that's under the executive branch or multiples. So if Congress passes a law concerning fentanyl distribution or something like that and changing the whatever, the criminal statutes on fentanyl.
So just them signing off on the laws, them executing the law?
Well, I mean, the signing of it means they agree to execute the law as written, yes. That's what the president is signing off on. Okay, you guys pass this law. I'm going to execute that as written because my Justice Department and my DEA, who work for me, are now subject to this new law you guys passed. That is my understanding in a structural sense of how this thing is supposed to work. It's not the president's domestic agenda is not. It's not supposed to be the president wants to pass a law like for forgiving all student loans. It's like, okay, the president can ask Congress to do that, but Congress shouldn't be beholden to what the president asked for. He can't do it on his own. He can't just have his education department wipe away these loans. He has to have permission from the legislature to do so.
Are there limitations to executive orders?
There are, and I don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
Because it's this weird little, the ones that, every time we hear of one, it's like this weird interpretation of some law that exists that gave the president the authority to do so. But I mean, in the last 50 years or so, the Congress has given away a ton of authority to create new law whole cloth to the executive branch, which is a failure of government by Congress and Senate. We can't deal with that, and sometimes it was like, we have a Democratic majority in the House and Senate or whatever, but we have a Republican president, and so they take away some executive privileges and then they give them back because they have a president they do like or that's part of their party, and it's kind of bullshit or whatever. It's not an uncommon thing, but I don't think. To me, I think as far as their outlook and priorities on things that they should have functional, tangible ability to make changes to, I think foreign policy is should be number one in the wheelhouse of the president's. At least constitutionally, functionally, as I understand, as I believe it to function as.
Gotcha.
Now, it hasn't operated that way forever. Presidents do domestic policy all the time.
I thought you were more focused on domestic and would rather them not focus as much on international.
I would rather have a government that did not spend a lot of time focusing on international. Yes, I'm not. I'm
right. We're talking about the rules of the presidency.
Sure, I don't think. No, I think they should have a limited ability to do shit internationally without legal permission from Congress. Like they can't just spend money on X, Y, or Z. They can't go start a war without Congress.
They can't for 30 days.
Yeah, which is fucking weird. Because what do you do 29 days later? If you're Congress and we're fucking neck deep in some shit.
So I was just wondering, can you just start a 29-day war?
I mean, it would have to be so egregious.
So, I mean, he is the commander of the armed forces, so he could.
And it makes sense, and it does make sense functionally. Like, 'cause shit happens fast, and we don't need the slow grinding wheels of Congress.
Yeah, we Congress to vote on,
to withhold and play partisan games and all the kind of shit that they do. When it's like, we need to act now on the situation.
All right.
But at the same time, it's like 30 days later, and we have active combat going on in some corner of the world. Like, how, I don't know how you could vote against it as a congressman, regardless of the public outlook on it. In this climate, like, you've got to say yes. Send us to war.
I mean, I don't know if it's just in the guise of, it possibly being a, I could see it being semi-rare, but it wouldn't be unheard of for, quelling an uprising within a month.
I don't know. What uprising? Like who's uprising that it necessitates us to be part
of? U.S. territory, which would be weird sending troops into a U.S. territory, but
it'd be National Guard anyway, like functionally, and then that doesn't need congressional approval. The president can send the National Guard wherever he wants inside the United States. It'd be
just National Guard,
huh?
I don't think it would just necessarily be just National Guard. I mean, we have
like Puerto Rico,
full-on military bases.
Like if Puerto Rico tried to rebel for independence, like is this the example we're trying to put together?
America, Samoa. I mean, we have a plethora.
I know. I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying, like, give me a hypothetical so I can run with it.
I mean, it could be Puerto Rico. You've got some.
So the citizens of Puerto Rico wish to secede from the Union or from the what are they? Protectorate? What's their title?
What's their title? I'm not sure.
Like they're like I don't know. They wish for full independence or full unification and statehood. So like, and they start a violent rebellion for independence.
I mean, if you have something like what's going on in Haiti, where you have like the citizenry that are essentially trying to overthrow the established government of that territory.
But this is Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory,
right?
Independent,
right?
Sure, that's not war.
No,
it's not. I don't know if it is or not because I don't know if they're not an independent nation. So yeah, it's not war. That's a police action. I mean, that would be like if. I mean that's so different than like.
Right. Yeah. The
president
cannot declare war, but as far as sending American troops to a location to do, like they did in Vietnam, they considered a police action for I don't know how many years.
Yeah, but that's an independent nation they're going to send them to. I don't know if that's
right.
Well, I think technically it's illegal. It's illegal to put U.S. troops onto U.S. citizens to combat U.S. citizens.
But, and pretty sure in our system, they're not considered actual U.S. citizens.
Good question.
They're that weird caveat that they're like American.
I mean, I don't know. Like the only examples I can think of where the president should be able to, like, would functionally need to want to pick a fight internationally shouldn't exist in the first place to be. So it's hard for me to rationalize. Like, yeah. So like we have bases all over the fucking planet. And so, I don't know, Iran does a ground assault on some base we have in Iraq. No, it still doesn't make sense. Okay, so Iran invades Iraq only to invade a base that we have in Iraq. It kills a bunch of our soldiers, and a bunch of them get flown out or scattered about and run away or whatever they have to do in the situation, and that goes on. Does the president have the right to start a war with Iran without congressional approval? I wouldn't think so. Now they do, I think technically in this 29 days thing. I'm trying to think of a situation where
that's really it's kind of weird phrase as far as like starting a war.
I mean, yeah,
and the president can't declare war without Congress approval.
I guess I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. I don't want to invade Iran, I guess.
Right. But I mean, like the first Gulf War, was pretty much over and done with kind of functionally very quickly.
Yeah.
When Iraq tried to take over Kuwait. Yeah.
Is Kuwait still a country? Does it still exist?
Yeah, it's still a thing.
I don't think I've heard. I think that's the first time I've heard the name in years.
Yeah, they're still there.
Wonder how the Kuwaitis are doing out there.
I think they're just trying to kind of like stay out of the fray of everything else.
They're just not. They're just quietly existing. Like most people, probably. Like
Qatar got some shit, and Saudi Arabia's got some shit going on, and we're just going to be Kuwait.
Fucking.
I mean, it's a relatively small country, if I remember.
Yeah, I mean, Iran's fucking huge. Apparently, I didn't realize how big Iran was. So
Iran's pretty large.
Anyway, I could go without any war powers and any war functions for a long time. That'd be cool. We got like 6 months. I mean, I guess we don't have active troops on the ground or anything right now, so that's good.
Yeah,
it's a win. That's sad that's a bare minimum for me. We've had 2 years. that we are not in active combat. We are all over the place currently.
I remember I saw a story about that the Russians were taking over an Iraqi base that U.S. soldiers were still stationed at. Something like that.
Cool. Sounds like fun. We should go. Hang out. Have a good time.
We're already there.
I meant me and you. We should just go hang out.
Yeah.
See what's going on.
Totes.
What else we got going on, man? We're just hanging out here, drinking beer, talking about hockey and shit. I Facebook messaged you that video. Did you watch that video?
Video?
Yeah. It was a Facebook.
Oh, no, I didn't see it.
It's pretty funny. Ready?
Yeah, don't.
Oh, damn it. I can't fix it. It's the whoever this is, I don't know. I can't see the watermark. The group that does these, this guy and the other guy. It's like it's a fake. It's like an English version of kind of a Daily Show where it's kind of like mocking news shows kind of thing. And they do a couple of explainers that are pretty phenomenal. And it's 100% accurate, and it sounds so ridiculous, but it's 100% accurate. They do one on like Greece, like when Greece bankrupt, like when Greece went bankrupt and it was trying to fucking up the EU and then the Brexit and all that kind of stuff. And it's he starts explaining who owes who money, and they don't have any more money, and they've got so many loans out, and it just turns into as he gets going, you start going. It's wait a minute, Spain has all these loans that they gave out to England. And England has all these loans that they gave out to France, and France has all these loans that they gave out to Spain, and so it turns into this big circle, and you start they don't. It just explains how this weird monetary system doesn't make any fucking sense. That's the whole premise of all their little sketches.
I mean, it doesn't sound too unheard of in the financial sense.
I mean,
that when you're looking at nations loaning money to one another, it's not uncommon. I don't know if you can make a one-to-one of Spain loaned money to Great Britain loaned money to France, and France loaned money to the Netherlands, and Netherlands loaned money to Germany.
And Germany
so
loaned
that's
money
all
to Spain.
The same $100,000 is just floating around from one country to the next. There are loans and monetary exchanges going on between countries.
Sure.
Constantly.
Sure. But when you get into the greater scheme of the monetary games that they play, what it's governments borrowing and loaning, individuals and national governments, full state, not just little independent this, that, the other. It gets a little wonky.
Right now, I'm talking about nation states.
I know, but it gets a little wonky. Okay, so if I owe you $1 million, you give me a loan for $1 million, right?
Okay.
All right. So, and I owe you that $1 million.
Man, I'm a millionaire?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So I owe you $1 million, and I loan that $1 million to Max.
So I think that's where you're making the mistake right there. Is that you
or
think
I
that you're loaning?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was
going to say I think that's a mistake you're making is equating that singular $1 million that was given to you, that you are then taking that $1 million.
Let me rebuild the example.
You're taking out the $1 billion of money that's going around, and you want to say oh, that's the same $1 million that went from one place to another.
I'm no, not at all. But I get where you're coming from. So you loan me $1 million, and I spend that $1 million on a new house. I build me a new house, right?
Okay.
Because that's what I asked you for the loan for. I build me a new house, and I'm paying you that loan back on the agreed upon terms or whatever. Now, somehow, you have no idea how, but somehow I'm loaning $1 million to Max. Would that not raise a couple of red flags with you? Because I owe you $1 million, and I just gave $1 million to somebody else. Wouldn't that just seem a little weird? That I owe you that money and I'm loaning it out to. I'm not loaning it out, but I'm somehow have $1 million. Why did I need the loan if I had the $1 million?
I kind of see what you're saying. My initial thought is I would, depending on the terms of the loan, and trying to think about it.
Right. I took advantage of you, and I got the loan at 2%, and it was I knew.
Well, not even percentage points as far as like when that was expected to be paid back.
Well, no, I mean that's the game. I mean that could functionally be the game. It's like, okay, you're
not even looking at the percentage rates as far as I borrowed you this with a certain amount of points.
Yeah, but I mean, I could it's a game I could play. It's like you're giving loans out for 2%, and I'll take $1 million. I'll take $1 million at your 2% loan, and I'll do whatever I do. But then I got somebody over here that I know will pay 4%, and I can give that or another $1 million to them. And then the interest that I'm paying to you, they're going to pay to me, plus I get interest from them. But theoretically, could work.
But these were listed as loans from one government to the next.
I mean, they're bond buys mostly. It's like they're buying government bonds from each other.
Is there a difference?
I mean, sort of. It's a tangible thing, theoretically.
It is a tangible thing.
I get the piece of paper but I mean, bonds have guaranteed rates and they have guaranteed returns, which is one of the fun parts, which other things don't necessarily have the guaranteed return.
Is that considered a loan? If I buy bonds from the U.S. government, okay. So if I buy bonds from the U.S. government, am I loaning them money?
I mean, sure. No, technically, I don't know.
Okay. So now I'm even more confused as to why you are explaining this as one country loaning money from one to the next, and now you want to say they're buying bonds from one country.
I'm pretty sure you brought up the bonds part, but
no, I thought you did. I was asking if this was a money thing, and I thought you said they were buying bonds.
I think that's the normal practice of it, but from the person selling the bonds, it is it is a loan. Yes. Like when, I don't know if they actually did it yet or not. Fuck, I missed that. I was going to try to buy a couple of the bonds for the Sports Authority. Right? From the Sports Authority, like that, from the city of Knoxville, I guess it's Knox County, City of Knoxville, Sports Authority as a commune body. That is them. They are taking on a loan, but functionally, definitionally, when they're selling the bonds. They're getting a loan because they're selling the bonds with the guarantee of paying back with interest.
Okay, yeah, kind of.
So
semi getting there, but it's still.
So functionally, yes.
I'm just not seeing it as your initial as one country loaning one country to the next.
From the seller's perspective, it is a loan. Yes.
Okay.
If you're lending me $1 million, or if I'm buying $1 million in bond, or if you're buying $1 million in bonds from me, that is a loan. Like that is, I gave you a loan. Yeah, you gave me a loan.
It's a more guaranteed version of a loan. Yes, I agree with that.
Well, it's guaranteed if you exist as an entity on the other side.
Right.
You know, that's the bet that you're making. It's a guaranteed loan as long as England exists as a nation.
Right.
By the maturity date of said bond.
Right.
But it's still just a loan, functionally. It is. It's functionally a loan. I need $1 million. Like, I mean, that's literally what it is. Okay, so like in a very direct example that we are dealing with right now, we created Knox County and the city of Knoxville created the Sports Authority. The Sports in that creation, they gave the sports the ability to sell bonds to raise funds to pay for this building of the stadium project. On paper, in the ledger, the Sports Authority has taken out a loan to build this stadium. They took out that loan from the general public with the guarantee of the city of Knoxville and Knox County to pay off that loan for the bonds they sold. But it is a loan practically on paper.
All right.
That is how it is treated. That's how it is functioned. Now, it is a more guaranteed loan than average, because it is a bond, and I have the full guarantee of the city of Knoxville and Knox County that I'm going to get my money back plus the interest guaranteed. Because the only way I don't get paid back is if Knox County doesn't exist on the other side.
Right.
So it's a pretty good bet that I'm going to get paid.
Yeah.
That's why it's a lower interest loan than most other loans are, because it's so well guaranteed.
All right.
But it's still a loan. Anyway, this whole thing is it just makes fun of, but it clarifies how fucked up and crisscrossed and how weird it is and how little sense it makes. That's really all it's doing. It's making fun of how I don't understand it. from any perspective, how do we make $100 billion exist so that we can send it to Ukraine? And again, I'm not trying to bring up this as far as an argument on why we should or shouldn't fund or whatever. It's like, where does the money fucking come from? Where does it, like, it just exists now, but it doesn't exist. It didn't exist yesterday. We didn't have that money to spend when we were talking about other things, when Congress was having good old fashioned partisan fights over whatever. We can't afford that. That is an answer that, a Burchett will give when he's pitching a fit about, pork spending. We can't afford to we can't afford for the federal government to pay for lunches for all the students at middle schools in the nation. We don't have that kind of money. But we have $100 billion to send to war. And it's like, it doesn't make sense. How does this make any sense? And where does it come from?
All right.
And that's where I get, like, that's what these guys make fun of, and that's what makes it funny to me. That's why I try to share it with you. Plus, he's got a great, weird kind of... They actually might be Australian, and I'm thinking about it. Either way, it's funny. You should watch them.
Could be interesting.
I don't like. Again, it makes fun of it. It makes clear how, like, it makes me feel less crazy. Maybe that's what it is. It's like you go down the rabbit hole of trying to explain it, and it makes you crazy. And it's like, oh, okay. I'm like, my craziness isn't crazy. My craziness is this is fucking crazy. It's not I'm crazy. It's this is crazy.
I think it's less crazy than you think it is, but I mean, I can understand it's hard to comprehend when you're looking at that kind of plethora of financial transactions.
It's weird. I don't know. Maybe it's
when you look at
if I understood the tools, I might be able to understand the.
I'll even say the convolutedness of the American, I guess, government / budget.
I mean, the financial system at large is a bunch of fuckery. It just truly is. It's a bunch of fuckery that makes no sense.
It's a fuckery. It's complex because we have a very complex economic system.
I don't know if I agree with that. It's not that complex. Our economic system is not that complex. Now, the inner workings of how, how this phone case got to me, that's complex. The creation of this from whole cloth is a little bit complex, but then, you build the thing and you put it in a box and you ship it here and there. That gets complex. But it's pretty simple. It's raw materials get shoved together and made into a thing, and all the people that go through the parts and pieces of the process get a little cut because they either did the actual labor to make the thing or they did the accounting and paperwork thing to get the thing moved here and there. And then, these other people that exist to make sure that those people are following the law as employees and the company is following the law as a company and all those, that's all pretty straight. It's a pretty straight line. Everybody takes a little piece here and there as far as what they contribute to the product before it gets to the market. Like, that's not that complicated. I mean, that is that complicated, but that's the complicated part. Economics is like, like U.S. monetary policy isn't super complicated. You create money.
How do we create
for money? The exchange of we created whole cloth anymore, and that's one of the problems I think we have.
What would you say our greatest adage to the GDP is, governmentally wise?
Our greatest adage to the GDP is currently. I mean, the reality is spending. When the government spends money, that creates GDP. Okay.
So the government spends money on, what would you say? I mean, obviously defense.
F-35s, yeah, that would be a $1 trillion F-35 project that makes planes that barely fly.
So we spend a lot of money on this.
They employ a bunch of people directly as employees of the state, or they employ a bunch of people indirectly as contractors for the state. Now,
so that would be expenditures coming out of that budget.
Yes.
Okay.
Paying people to work or paying companies to have their people work would be an expenditure, sure.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. They collect money from the citizenry through taxes, which isn't simple as far as the collection process and the logic behind the collection process. That's not simple. but the way that they're supposed to pay for these things that they do is through the taxes they collect. That's pretty simple. It should be pretty simple. We collect $5 trillion from our citizenry over a year. We spend $5 trillion on stuff. State of Tennessee does it every year. Knox County does it every year. City of Knoxville does it every year. Without deficit. All three of them, at least, have some sort of rainy day fund that they load into. They have some surplus every year intentionally. It's when the federal government does it where they run this deficit all the time that I get confused. Because they have the ability to print more, and that's one of the ways they do it. They sell things that don't exist. We have weird financial policies where a bank can borrow money from the Fed, which is technically a private industry, but it's really a product of the state, and only pay back 80% of it. That bank can loan, by law, more money than they have, which is a weird one. That's one of the weirdest ones in the world to me, is that you are allowed to loan out, I think it's up to like 140%. So if you wanted a $100 loan, I could give you, or if you wanted a $140 loan and I had $100 in my bank, I could give you $140. I don't know where the other $40 comes from, but I'm allowed to do that. Because I don't really give you the money anyway. I give you a check that goes to another bank and blah, 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 back and forth paperwork things. And then over time, you pay me $160 back. And then I borrowed that $100 in the first place from the Fed. I give them their $100, but now $60 exists that it didn't exist before. At least $40 that exists that didn't exist before.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with you because I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
It is one of the Fed rules. It's weird. I don't understand. Like I understand it in function, but I don't understand why it could possibly exist in the first place. A bank is allowed to loan more money than they have.
So I saw I think you mentioned once before, like modern monetary theory.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know.
I thought you knew about it a little bit more.
I know a little bit, but not a lot.
But I saw somebody explain it as when they were talking about it in reference to the national budget, and that, say the federal government gives out $100, but only gets back $90. A lot of people see that as, we're deficit of $10. But I guess in modern monetary theory, they see that as a net gain in that $10 is able to remain in the public, basically, where, we're seeing that as the federal government didn't get back that full $100. They put in $100 into the American public, per se.
Well, the theory is that, like, the idea
they only got back 90, but the American public still got to keep 10%.
Oh yeah, but where did the $10 come in the first place?
But I guess they're saying that's where if you're looking at a ledger line that
as I understood modern monetary theory is the little bit that I've read on it is it's basically you spend money first and tax to make it up when you don't get there. And so the idea really, the functional idea, and it actually kind of makes sense. The functional idea is if you put $10 million into the economy, it's like, so we're going to build a thing, infrastructure. It's a thing we all want. All right, so we're going to spend $10 million on infrastructure. Well, when I spend $10 million on infrastructure as Knox County, what I'm spending money on is hiring people, acquiring land, X, Y, and Z. But when I spend that $10 million, okay, so you had a piece of land that we bought. I'm giving you $500,000. What are you doing with that $500,000? You're going to spend it on something. You might save some of it. You might spend some of it, whatever. When I hire the road crew that's doing the job for $5 million of the $10 million, I'm hiring a bunch of people to work. And those bunch of people who work get paid. And what do the people that get paid do? They pay income tax. And more importantly, for Knox County's reference, is they're going to pay sales tax because they're buying shit with their money they get paid for. When they get there, they do their job, they get paid, and they spend that money. And so the theory in modern monetary is that so I paid you $500 because you were a laborer for 2 days on the project, right? So you spend that $500, 50 of that's going to be in sales tax, right? Functionally, it has to be.
Right.
But then that $450 that actually was real money getting spent gets spent at the restaurant, at the grocery store, at this place. And those people take that money because they work there and they spend it. And so, like, the theory is that mathematically, is as you follow those dollars that the government spent, those $10 million that the government spent, as it spreads through the economy and comes back, it's going to go a bunch of different places and get your $10 million or more back in taxes over time.
Right. I think that's what they were kind of trying to say, maybe in a more simplistic term, and that, you know, giving out $100, they only get 90 back, but that $10 that gets to stay in that other entity is getting spread around and is able to,
it's
like
going to get
said,
spent. It's going to, right, but but I think mathematically it doesn't. Where I get confused is it mathematically doesn't make sense. Like, if in a perfect, like, linear world with the $100 example, is in Tennessee at least, okay, the federal government does a project that they spend $10 on. We'll just use, or $100 on, right? So in Tennessee, at least, you spend that $100 on, I'm going to pay you to do this thing as the federal government. So first, as the employee, I'm taking $20 in income tax, right? I get that back. The federal government gets that back instantaneously. If it's just you doing one job, I pay you, you get that income of $100. About 20 of that's going to be income tax. So the federal government gets 20 of that 100 back already. All right, and so you have $80 to spend. You spend $72. The other $8 or so goes to the state of Tennessee. That $72 goes somewhere else, gets spent again. That person that took the $72 is going to pay 20% sales income tax on $72, which is like $14.50. So we now have $35.50 that the federal government's gotten back in income tax because that's their main income source. And then 7 or 8 goes to the state of Tennessee, leaving $65 for that next person in line. That next person in line spends their $65 or gets paid $65. 20% goes out for income tax. That's $13. Now we're at about $50 in income tax generated off of that initial $100 spent. And you keep working your way down the line, it's not going to make it ever back up to $100. And I think that's the illustration they're saying, is that as it goes down the line, that $100 is going to come back at like $85, $90, maybe. I think that's a little bit of a generous take. And now a bunch of that goes to the state of Tennessee, and then the state of Tennessee spends
I think they were
their
saying
portion.
I think they were saying that more in just kind of the view of the general federal deficit, as far as we may be putting in $100, and on paper, we're only getting back 90 initially, but that $10 is still remaining in the economy that is able to.
Right. Well, because even all the trim that I took off for the state of Tennessee, because in the process we've taken like $25 off for the state of Tennessee, and the state of Tennessee employs somebody, and they pay income tax, and that's going to put another chunk back over here on the federal side of it. But it doesn't. I mean, it's still $10 in the it's.
I kind of got it as they were saying that basically that $10 is getting to stay in the American economy, and we're all saying that as like the government's losing, $10 every year.
But it is, because even if it does quote unquote stay into the economy, it's new money that didn't exist before, so it's going to inflate as part of the process too. Now, is that $10 going to outpace inflation? Probably not. So, like, I kind of get the premise. This is where I get lost in it, because I kind of get the premise, but
I mean, that may be completely my misunderstanding of what they were trying to say.
Like the example we just ran down. Like, I could see how eventually it's gonna make its way back because it didn't exist before. But if the theory is functionally accurate, then the government should be able to spend any and all money that it wants to, all the time. And so then it gets down to this weird, like, then what's the point? If it doesn't matter, if you're going to spend it and it's going to come back at least 90% or more, and then that leftover is good for the economy, as they're trying to, as you're trying to say, not you're trying to say, but you're trying to quote as your understanding or whatever, then why don't we just all get $1 million checks every year for being citizens? Why wouldn't that just work? Because you put the $1 million into the economy 300 million times, it's just going to come back. It
doesn't always work like that. I mean, just as in a company trying to invest in a certain thing, it may or may not be profitable. It could very well not be profitable at all, and it could be a total loss.
But I mean, what are we talking? Like, but okay,
Which, I mean, that's what we happen at the federal government level as well. Was it like the F-35 or one of like the newer jets?
Right, sucks balls, yeah.
Yeah, we lost millions, if not billions of dollars on the whole, just R&D. But, I mean, I don't want to say on the plus side. I mean, that
we spent $1 trillion, and that $1 trillion went into the economy. In its ways that it goes into the economy. And that's what I'm saying. If the modern monetary theory is accurate, then we spent that $1 trillion, which on its face is a waste because the thing it created was worthless.
Right. On the federal government's ledger side of it,
but
they paid into this.
But if the theory is correct, if the modern monetary theory part of it is correct, it's like, well, okay, it doesn't matter if the project is a success or not, because all the people we employed to work on it, all the materials bought to build it, all the research and development and all that kind of stuff, maybe it didn't work for this thing, but that's new information that we now have in our pocket that's a thing that we can use in a future project or whatever it is. All this stuff goes in, and eventually it's all going to come back at least 90% or so as you know, the 190 that you were talking about. It doesn't matter if the thing works or not. Who cares? Really? Because if the theory is correct, if we are installing $1 million into the economy and we get $900,000 back, that $100,000 that's still in the economy is a net plus.
Well, I was just more using that as an example of, I mean, I always hate equating the federal government to a, you know, corporate entity. But I think sometimes people kind of want to look at that, you know, economically wise, as they want to view the proceeds versus losses compared to.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's hard not to for people that have, for me at least, it's hard not to look at it that way.
I mean, we essentially we look at the deficit is our GDP versus, you know.
Right, our annual budget.
Right.
No, that's not accurate either, because GDP has nothing to do necessarily with income for the state. I mean, theoretically it does, but not directly. We look at our tax revenues, and then we look at how much the government spends.
Yeah.
GDP. The higher the GDP, the higher the tax revenues will be. But GDP in and of its own has nothing directly to do with government income.
Right, it's an indicator of economic well-being.
Right, the higher the GDP, the more taxes will be raised. The more taxes that are raised, the more you have to spend. I mean, the functional difference in a corporation and in the U.S. government is a corporation cannot create new money.
Right. I mentioned the fighter jet or whatever that was a complete failure, essentially, in that it's not too dissimilar from corporate companies that have money that they spend on this and that.
Sure, but that's not the point. I think is what we're trying to talk about right now.
Right.
The point we're trying to talk about right now is that government spending, like modern monetary theory, as I understand it, is government spending doesn't matter because it will come back majorly over time. Doesn't matter what they're spending it on necessarily. It's that if we put $1 million into the economy, almost $1 million will come back through the process. That's the idea. And then if it doesn't, we just raise taxes to make it.
That's kind of what I got, but yeah, I'm still not completely sold on it.
But I mean, again, the simple question to me is like, okay, well, if it doesn't matter, if the federal government puts money into the economy and it doesn't have any negative effect, then why are we doing anything? Why don't we just all get a $150,000 a year salary from the federal government? Because if it doesn't negatively affect the economy for them to just give money out, whether it's in an F-35 project spending or just directly to me and you, it'd actually probably be more functional in tax purposes if they gave it to us than they gave it to a company to build a thing. But that's an aside. If it doesn't matter how much they spend, then why aren't they just giving us $1 million checks every year? Because what's it matter? Because it's all going to come back through the theory anyway. And I think the reality.
Do you know the answer to that?
Well, the reality is that because it doesn't work. Because if it did work, why are we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? We'd all be millionaires.
I would think if there was the scenario that the federal government had the ability to give every citizen $1 million, it would cease GDP essentially. Damn near.
Right. There would be
no,
for us
no
to
reason for us
anything.
To produce anything. Yes.
So that's but then the inverse is, so the theory on why our government doesn't bother taking care of things in any way, shape, or form for us as our citizens. That's a overstatement on me because of my general outlook on things. But why the government doesn't actually fix problems that we have because it costs money is because if they did fix it, we wouldn't continue to work and make things.
Oh, give me one example.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, if they fixed homelessness, well, if they spent the money to fix homelessness and give people places to live, well, then we wouldn't have to. None of us would have to work anymore to bother finding a place to live because the government's going to buy us a house. So then, productivity of the populace stops if the government bothers fixing problems.
So buying everybody houses or buying?
I mean, just making sure we all have places to live, whether it's directly buying or funding some sort of project or giving us straight cash so we can pay rent. I don't know. Doesn't matter. If the money's going to come back because modern monetary theory is true, and then if modern monetary theory works functionally, then the only reason the federal, state, or local governments don't bother fixing real problems is because they need to have these problems exist so that we continue working to produce stuff. They need us to continue being productive because they know if they fix problems, we won't be productive anymore. That is the logical line as I see it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some truth to it. If we wanted to maintain, I guess, status quo as is, which with the immigration crisis that's gone on in the past few years, in certain areas it's been laid bare that we don't have that populace to then do the work that isn't needed.
Do the crappy jobs that nobody wants to do. We can automate it out. Come on now.
Right. No. There's a number of jobs that do not lend themselves to lend themselves to it.
They'll get there. Maybe the innovation to get us there would go quicker if we go ahead and address that problem.
It's possible. It would take money.
Again, so give it out
to provide the R&D to
let the federal government pay that out, and it'll.
I think we
all come back anyway.
Talked about months before. I think when we talked about this, I think it was like Oregon or something that had like asparagus or something. I'd read a story about.
Yeah, the lady got screwed because she liked working 68 hours a week because that's how she got enough money to pay her fucking bills. But they changed the law on him, so he would only let her work 40 hours. That one?
No.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, there's definitely those cases.
Oh yeah, and the asparagus grows so damn fast that they need to work.
Right. Yeah, like they grow so fast that you've got to have like that field cleared like every 4 or 5 days or whatever. But with the increase in immigration enforcement, all of a sudden, like those migrant workers that would have been there were not there anymore.
Yeah, don't know how to fix that problem.
And that's the weird kind of like caveat is we want to push back on illegal immigration, but we have many industries that rely upon such.
I'll make it. So you got to figure out the real number on how much you have to pay a U.S. citizen to harvest asparagus by hand, and then give them a stipend.
Yeah,
give the federal government if you grow asparagus, and we will give you X number of dollars per acre from the federal government to grow asparagus so that you can pay your employees a living wage.
I mean, we already have the farm bill. I mean, that's essentially what that should.
I'm saying like
cover.
Like if the conversation is it is too expensive to staff pickers, And if we paid people what we would have to pay them as Americans, as U.S. citizens, to do this job, the price of asparagus would be $20 a handful or whatever it is when you go to the grocery store, and then nobody's going to buy it.
And I wonder, like, if we've just gotten used to just the low cost of everything, of just being through this system of how it's remained cheap, I guess, depending on the certain levels, as far as like picking versus processing versus producing. I mean, getting it to the shelf.
It'd be a fun little rabbit hole to go down, to go through in 1950 when you went and bought a bushel of apples from the grocery store. If you went down the how do you got to the $5 a bushel, then to the $7 a bushel now, whatever it is, like. Because like they do it in cars. I know it's a thing they do in cars, where they'll put in, like you can find reports where it breaks down. The car costs this much to make. It costs this much for the welders, and this much for the painters, and this much for the labor part of it, and then the raw materials part of it, and then this, that, and that. Like you can do that with any product.
All right.
And so I'd be interested to see that on an agricultural one, and then do that as a comparison.
Yeah, again, that's what I've been curious of is. Have we been artificially deflating the cost just to try to not to make it, outrageously expensive?
Right, and then we offshore a bunch of shit, and then that cheapened the labor part of it, but then the shipping part went up. And
or have strawberries been, relatively cheap just because we relied upon people we can pay $3 an hour, and then pay those people that package.
That's what I'm saying, though, is you do it as a comparison to like the 50s or 60s or whatever, when minimum wage was 75 cents. Or whatever minimum wage was way back then.
I mean, I'm even trying to look at a comparison, but just in the general cost in a...
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. Is like
a current stance.
As a percentage,
like, this is what it costs us to have someone pick strawberries.
As a percent, you do it as a comparison, so that you could say as a percentage of retail, because that's going to give you a functional idea of what's actually happening. Now, in the 50s, the 20% of the retail price of apples was labor, and now 20% is labor. Then that makes sense. But if 20% of labor then, and it's 10% of labor now, where's that functional change come from? Is it that there is a government subsidy for this product, and that's why they're able to keep the price down? And so it's artificially lowering the retail price because of a subsidy, or is it that labor got cheaper or technology got better or whatever? But that's the way to look at it. It's like, why did the price of an apple go up over 50 years? Is it because of labor? Because that'd be how you answer the question you were asking. Like, are we deflating prices somehow through some mechanism? Is there something happening in the market that is why we're pushing prices down? Bulk buying, all that kind of shit. Is that what is happening and why it's doing it? Because again, you go back and compare to the 50s, you don't have Walmart. You don't have Amazon, who are having huge impacts on the total market of items because they have that bulk buying power that we've talked about a bunch of different times.
Right.
And so it's like, well, if that bulk buying power thing was real and it was supposed to help lower the prices, is it functionally actually artificially lowering the prices, or is it just kind of hiding the fact that prices are about the same or more? That's interesting. That'd be a fun rabbit hole to go down. We need an economist. Any of you economists out there, hit us up on an email. It's time to get weird. That email is almostagreement@gmail.com. I'd love an economist on the show. If you know an economist that's really good economist. I know one, Matt Harris, looking at you, buddy. Sort of. He works for UT. I don't know exactly what his little subfield is, because I'd like somebody to explain to me why inflation is obligated. I know we've talked about that a couple times. Anyway, news of the weird. Excuse me, I burped. Just one tonight. We're running along with the hockey game.
Okay, I'll go with one. Actually, I saw earlier.
The tip-toppy one, the bestest one.
It's not quite the. I would call it the bestest, but
I mean, it's not.
I would consider it the most. Shit, I think I actually did find a Florida man one recently. But
on a scale of 1 to Florida games.
Yeah.
And Florida games being 10, just a day in the life being 1.
You're just going to have to go with what you get.
All right. It was like a 6 or 7? Give me something.
I mean, this, to me, found very interesting. Wild orangutan used a medicinal plant to treat a wound.
Okay. That's not really weird. Well, that's kind of weird. I don't know.
It's one of the first times they've actually been able to, I guess, observe and actually document the use of
some self-medicating by a wild animal.
A primate. Yeah, I think it was something they actually chewed up to apply upon a wound that was underneath their eye. That had been used in other areas, the same plant, for medicinal properties, but they actually found a primate, an orangutan.
What do you mean? But it had been used by people in that same area?
Yeah.
For the same purpose? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it possible that this this orangutan had witnessed it from humans?
Doubt it.
I don't know. I'm just curious.
Because I would think in humans, they're not processing it from the plant themselves to then, or picking the plant to then process it to then apply it. That an orangutan would have actually.
So you don't think learned,
I don't know, where it would have been a learned. Where was it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Didn't see exactly. Indonesia.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's.
Yeah, the photographs show the animal's wound closed within a month without any problems.
I don't know. I just feel like it is possible that some tribe living nearby that is a standard tribal medicine for wounds. That this plant they chew it for a little bit and then they rub the oil, juice, whatever,
right,
on a wound, and it would be possible that said orangutan had witnessed it and said, maybe. Or just did it out of mimicry and it accidentally worked.
Are you giving that much credit to the orangutans?
I mean, out of mimicry, they're known to do mimicry, sure. I've done it at the zoo where you get up face to face with them in the big piece of glass and you make faces and they make faces back at you.
Right.
I mean, mimicry is a
it is a thing, but
especially among primates.
As far as a learned,
I guess my point is, I'm getting to is that I would imagine that it is possible that it is not a well processed medical thing by people in the area. It's not something that they take it to a lab and they break it down and synthesize and whatnot. It's they literally chew it up a little bit and rub it on a cut.
Right, but I would highly doubt that a learned response like that would be observed and then cognizantly recognized as that was a wound. That person picked a plant, chewed it up, applied that paste to their wound, and that wound got better. So then that tells me that...
Yeah, I think you're giving more agency in your interpretation of me than I am. I'm literally saying they saw a person chew that plant and stick it on a spot on their body. I chewed that plant and stick it on a spot on my body. It happened to over thousands of iterations of however many orangutans saw that process and did that process, that it happened to actually go along with a wound accidentally this time. Or intentionally this time. I don't know.
No, this was intentional.
How do you know it's intentional? Because
the orangutan applied it intentionally to its face
where the wound was.
To cure a wound, yes.
Okay. I think I could. I'm not saying it's not, but I could see it as a mimicry item. That's all I was trying to say. I'm not trying to say it isn't a fascinating little whatever.
I would say it's more in your sense, the latter versus the former.
I don't remember which the latter or the former was at this point.
The former was your theory, and that they just were just mimicking, seeing.
So you think it was cognitive and intentional?
Yes.
Where I'm giving it the more random.
That's what's the scientist, yes, and I believe the scientist in this aspect of it.
Same believes in science, people. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
It's kind of fun.
I believe in science. My bad.
I think it's kind of fun. I'm not trying to. I am trying to be a dick. Yeah, I don't know. The end is like I've seen Planet of the Apes a couple times. I'm freaking out a little bit every once in a while. Every once in a while, I go, "Oh shit!" At some point, whether it's.
We've found on like few occasions, or we found on multiple occasions of primates using tools.
I mean, there was a thing the other day that they think that primate that there's like there's a tribe. What do they call chimpanzees? A group of chimpanzees? A troop?
Troop, yeah, I think so.
That were using that the scientists watching them or whatever kind of theorized that they were entering the Stone Age. Tool usage, because they were manipulating rocks into a tool to then use as a thing. It wasn't just hitting stuff with a rock; it was hitting the rock with something to change the rock to then use that rock to hit something else.
Yeah, I know there's one species. Yeah, there's at least one, or if not more than some species that use, some kind of tool basically to put into to an ant mound to eat the ants out.
Yeah, they just take like a long piece of grass they shoved out in there into a mound.
Right.
I mean, there's a couple of birds like otters use rocks to break. Clams open.
Yeah. What I'll say was chimpanzees that they actually found the use of deception that was used.
Yeah.
To where they had a call for, huh?
Oh, yeah. The high-low call. High
threat,
low threat.
The high-low, but as far as hey, there's a bunch of food over here, and that call being made to then draw others to that area to when that one person that made that false call actually went to where the food really was or whatever.
Right.
So it was more, yeah.
Yeah,
I
hadn't heard that one, but I heard ones were like in lab stuff where they were they would do it was like the grape or a piece of candy or whatever, and they would do the whole where's the piece of candy under the cups or something like that.
All right.
And they would do it solo, and then they when they said where's the candy, they'd do the little cup game, and they'd be like the candy's right there, and they'd open it and there's the candy and they could eat the candy. But then when they brought in another chimp on the other side of a glass or something like that, it was weird. It was like they had two chimps next to each other, and they did it again where they did it in front of one chimp, but they asked the other chimp where the candy was. And when they told him the right one, they would give the piece of candy to the chimp that was over there. And when they told the wrong one, they'd give the piece of candy to the chimp that told them the wrong one. Told him it was the wrong place. Because the one that couldn't reach it was the one that was telling him where it was. And once that chimp figured out that if he lied about where it was, he would get the candy, they would continuously do it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat. Fun stuff.
Yeah, we're just deception.
Yeah. I don't know. The robots or the next primate that's going to take over the world. I just hope I'm dead first. I'll be dead first. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Procreation might have been a mistake because now they might have to deal with it. I'll be dead, but they might still be alive, and that sucks. I feel like a terrible parent. I'm a terrible parent. Almost in agreement at gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. The website, almostinagreement.com. Check out the cool stuff we got there. The hollaroo.co link is still up. You can hit that here in the next week or so because registration for Holler Boo is opening in mid-May. So if you want to come out and be a vendor or race a derby car down Central with us, we've got a new exciting track that we're setting up this time. It's going to be a little bit more dangerous, maybe a little bit more mild injuries at play. Nothing major. Nobody's dying, no death. That's the rule. But hollaroo.co or hollarboo.com will be coming to you guys soon. It's not quite up and running yet, but it will be soon. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Check us out there. Go to almostinagreement.com. Check out the cool stuff we're going there. Elections are coming up. We'll start working on some of these people. I'm going to start interviewing again, I promise, at some point. I'm certainly going to talk to Jackson Finner and a couple other people that are running near me. Elaine Davis. I'll get Amanda Collins in here finally because she's finally actually running for office, and I've talked to her enough that I should. Brian Cornello, that's the Brian that I fucking hate on all the time, who's not running for that seat. Anyway, Almost Agreement, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.